I'm going to go ahead and start. My name is Andrea Smith. Many of you may know me. Thank you for being here, and we're going to have a really exciting, informative, and hopefully entertaining afternoon. This year's Mommy Tech has two purposes. One of them is to show you some of the really cool products that are addressing the moms market here at CES and around the industry. But the other really is to hear from you. What is your role as the very vocal mouthpieces of what are we hearing about? What are people talking about? Because it's really great that moms' voices are finding their ways into the tech dialogue. So we're going to look at the phenomena of mommy tech, or mommy bloggers. And the question is, have we done any damage with this label of mommy bloggers? Vocal, see? So Greg Smith, the sponsor of this conversation, we're very happy to have him as a sponsor. And this way, we're going to take a look at some of the mom bloggers who've become very successful brands unto themselves and find out how they got there and what they think of it. So, Greg, why don't you come on up and introduce everybody?
Sure. Do you want to help me with the
Yeah, actually, I'll give a little framework for this. So, hi, everybody. My name is Lori Schwartz, and I'm a tech catalyst and principal at World of Schwartz, and I work with a lot of media companies, technology companies, and content creators to help them navigate each other. And it's my pleasure to moderate today's panel, Don't Call the Mommies, to really get to the business behind mom writers, women that are professional writers who are creating parenting content, and all the business operations that are going on behind that, and the real commerce that's happening there. And to set the stage for this, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Greg Smith, who is the CEO and managing partner of iRgonomic. And Greg and I had a great chance to work together the last couple of years when we were both at McCann World Group, where Greg was the CIO. And a lot of what we did was try to understand technology through a creative perspective and looking at trends and data and building solutions that resonated based on those trends and data. So Greg has just built a new company that's doing that, and he's going to help set the stage for this conversation about the business behind writing parenting content by talking to us about some really relevant data from ComScore. So Greg Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Lori. We'll switch over to 2, right? That should work. Yep, good. Don't call the mommies. Well, we should probably change that, right? I think there's an issue with that. But we're very pleased to sponsor this panel. We're actually here to learn, and hopefully you're here to learn as well. I think it's going to be an exciting time. A bit about iRgonomic. As Lori mentioned, we're a company that builds things, and we are really a bunch of dreamers and doers, designers, and code writers who create experiences and digital experiences in particular. We work across a broad variety of marketers, agencies, and media companies. So in some cases, we're sort of the technology underneath a platform that's been delivered, and I'll show you a couple examples of that. The foundation of iRgonomic really flows from a couple of things. First of all, we know that spending is shifting in organizations in terms of IT and technology in general, and the CMO at some point in time, we believe by 2017, will be spending more on IT than the CIO. And that we've all known this for some time, but it still resonates, is that really the only sustainable competitive advantage is the knowledge, engagement with customers, and that's what we really believe in. And finally, data being a key driver, and that's what we're going to talk a bit about today. We've got some great data from our partners at ComScore and some great quotes from a study that was done by McCann. So overall, iRgonomic, we really believe that both consumers and organizations, whether it's outward-facing or inward-facing experiences, should be great. And we believe that catalyst moments should be that point in which you really point the path for the creation of what that experience is. And that's why we created the role at McCann called the Technology Catalyst, which is what Lori is. And it's somebody who's able to create that moment when someone's thinking of an idea and they go, I never thought of it that way, and all of a sudden that new path is created. Just yesterday, I think we saw this in Ad Age, and I found it interesting, so I stuck it into the presentation. And I think they're right. I think that CES doesn't get women, and in particular, mommies. And I think the title of this particular panel might be an example. So we really do believe that we're here to learn and understand what do we need to do to understand women and moms in particular. So just to think about brands and how we see things, strong brands, provide value, they earn attention, they should be entertaining, or both. McCann had a great study in August talking about the world of mom in the past and today coming together in this triathlon And a fantastic quote about moms in general, I think, is that, you know, the brands that provide moms with utility for the whole triathlon will succeed. And that the mom's success should be celebrated, and it should not be dramatizing the struggle, which is a really interesting perspective. So when we start building things as Ergonomic, that's our approach, is really how do we celebrate a mom when we're building something. One example of work we've done in the past was the Unilever Family Dish. It was actually the first app that was from Unilever that leveraged the iAd technology. It was a great collaboration of McCann, its strategy arm, creative, and the technology was built by my team at Ergonomic. We've also done things like the RCI Snapbook, which is a great experience when families are on vacation, where they can snap, sync, and share either with their own family that are on vacation or family abroad. So getting into why we're here. Who are digital moms? And I really want to thank the team at ComScore for producing some great data for us. Interesting facts here. First of all, news and information being a significant point of consumption of traffic. I think also another one here that's interesting is the over-indexing on business and finance, which really points to a mom being the CFO in the home, and that's why she's headed there. I think another interesting fact that we found in the data was that social networking, we know it's just beyond Facebook, but the trend moving towards more of a visual form of content consumption is interesting, and we're seeing that more and more, and we see that more in video as well. So I think we're going to see that continue to trend. Some interesting facts, 36% of people who say they use the internet in 5 days, this is what moms are. 34% of the people who send more than 200 emails a day. I found that number big. And 33% of the people who actually use a Facebook app. So you're seeing a significant chunk of the market as moms. In terms of the traffic, they over-index in retail, community, family, educational, et cetera. It's no wonder, but it's something we should keep in mind in terms of the content and where the content is being placed. Video is massive, and our company is involved in a couple of efforts right now, mostly around video, and we're seeing a lot of demand in that space. It's going to continue to grow. It's just an exploding market. And an interesting phenomena that we have, which is an interesting one, which we're going to need to talk about, is that the consumption of video is far outpacing the supporting ad space. So the inventory is just not being purchased against the consumption, and that gap needs to be filled. And I don't know why it's not being filled just yet. Maybe it's just a trend. Maybe the content's not provocative. I'm not really sure. The next chart is interesting in that as the time's being spent, there's an increase in views, but there's an increase in time spent, which would lead me to believe that people are more engaged and the content's getting better. So hopefully that gap between consumption of the content and the ad sales will come together. In mobile, and I think this is the most important factor, and I think we know that moms won't let go of their smartphone, but they might let go of their iPad for their kids or something. Mobile is really the key here, and this was from January of last year. It's probably in the 70s right now. Another interesting fact, and we're wrapping up quickly, just because I want to make sure the panel has enough time to talk, is that the growth of apps is increasing, but I found it interesting that search is still on browser access. So maybe there's an opportunity there to bring that utility together in terms of searching or getting the answer that mom's looking for in some kind of utilitarian fashion. So just to wrap up, from the study, digital moms really index well in apparel, entertainment, coupons, beauty, fashion, family. They're spending more time watching video, so video is key here. They're definitely leading the charge in smartphone adoption, and the best brands will provide mom with utility. And that's kind of a key finding that we took away from the studies, both from ComScore and from McCann. So hopefully that's some interesting facts that we can get started and get going.
Great. And Greg, I just wanted to ask you one question before we jump into our fabulous panelists. How much now, as you guys sit down to build new client products, whether they're mobile or websites or whatever, how much of this data and understanding the segment, like if you were going to build something for a mom segment, like how much does this play into the role now when Ergonomic looks at something?
I think it's important, especially with brands coming out that have limited budgets. What devices are they aiming at? Are they going to waste their time on a RIM platform? Not to say that RIM's bad, but I think if you look at the traffic of existing sites, you're looking at iOS and Android, and what device is tablet versus smartphone. It's expensive to deliver an experience on all platforms, and especially with multiple aspect ratios, you're looking at an ongoing curation effort, but also QC and support. So I think focusing on the devices as one example in terms of the data is kind of key for us in terms of building things.
That's great. All right, we're going to wrap Greg back into it because Greg comes from, again, many years of being leadership at a large ad agency and holding company, and that'll play nicely into our conversation about monetizing all this great content. So let's jump into our fabulous panelists, and we really do have 4 of some of the most powerful women in this space right now who are creating great content in the parenting space and who have really, I think, in many ways, created all sorts of new business models that never existed before in this parenting content space. So let's start first with Kimberly, Clayton, Blaine, the go-to mom. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to, the kind of work that you're doing?
Well, we're basically a digital program for moms specifically. We started out as branded education, moved into branded entertainment, and we will be going into scripted entertainment as well. But it's all video-based. It's pretty much like blogging, but it's all video. So we're sharing the same information, just our audience can hear us and see us.
And you were doing video vlogs way before anybody else, right? You were like one of the first people to get up there and kind of put it online.
One of the first educational shows for parents, 7 years ago. I was one of the first, because I'm a licensed therapist. The shows were based on raising your baby and your toddler. And so they were very based in the psychology of parenting and communication with your baby. And there wasn't a lot of programming out there 7 years ago for that.
Right.
But as social media morphed, so did our content. And it became funny, it became silly, we had brand integration in it. And so it's evolved over time.
And when you say brand integration, because you have some great stories about how you went out and sold this and found big brands like Sony to sponsor what you were doing when no one else was doing it yet. How did you do that?
Right. Well, of course, my middle name is the closer. So I had to really, form really long-term relationships with brands to let them know what we were doing, because it's kind of out of the box. They're like, what are you doing? It's video. What? Where is it played? Why do we want to be a part of it? So we had to, convince a company like Sony. One, we shoot on your equipment. It's the best out there. It's the easiest for mom to use. And when they're going to buy a piece of equipment to record their family or bring it into their blog, they're going to consider Sony. And so we created a program around their products that integrated the product for about 10 seconds. And back then, it was out of the box. Now it's not so much out of the box. So we're shifting our model to, something even more innovative, but as we're always changing with the times.
Right, and so you're working on new business models. So
Yes.
you went,
Yes.
you found Sony, you told them I'm going to integrate your brand into
Right.
my storytelling
Right.
about this parenting content.
Right.
And now I know you have a partnership with Mom Pulse. Can you tell us about that? Or?
Right, well, Fullscreen is the parent company, and they're one of the top performing YouTube channels for gaming, and so they now have created a mom vertical. They call it Mom Pulse TV. And I've been brought in as co-founder to help build that channel for women who specifically want to focus on video blogging. And so we help them build their channel. We teach them how to optimize their channel as well, so that they know how to get views, they know how to use keywords and stuff like that. So we're building, essentially, it's like a blog network, but it's a video blog network, and it's the largest on YouTube right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then YouTube is selling advertising
Yes.
against the content that all these moms are creating.
Yes, and we are a YouTube partner, so we're doing it in conjunction with YouTube, but then we're also offering opportunities for the mom bloggers to have more customized relationships with the brands. So they'll come in and request a mom who's a lifestyle or a mom that's into fitness, and she'll have a customized campaign with a brand that has nothing to do with pre-roll or any of the inventory.
And so this is not just me who says, oh, I'm good at jump roping, I'm shooting myself in video and jump roping. This is like you taking these women, helping them get professional with their content,
Right.
and shaping it and getting it into a real business model.
Right, exactly. In fact, we just created a conference that we'll be doing it next year, and we'll be encouraging the mom to go from her user-generated mobile device filming herself to maybe moving up to a video camera to actually having other people record her, and maybe having a pro crew eventually down the road if she wants to commit to that, because it is a huge commitment. It's very expensive to go pro, to have professional crew. But we're teaching that, and we're going to have a conference because we think this is one of the things that the viewers want to see. They want to see their favorite blogs become more interactive.
So more like Greg was saying from the data from ComScore, more about video, more about engagement, full of more robuster content. Okay, that's great. We're going to come back to you because I know you're doing a lot of things too with Google and using their tool set.
Right.
Let's go to Danielle Wiley now, who, again, breaking new models. You've created an agency around hiring and working with well-established mom bloggers. So can you tell us about that?
Yep, so we're called Sway Group. I launched it just over a year and a half ago.
It's fabulous.
So I come from interactive marketing and then more recently a PR background, and increasingly we were doing more and more programs that we were hiring bloggers like Liz, who's now a client of Sway Group, to do paid programs. And it became really obvious that there were pain points on both sides of the equation. So from the brand and agency perspective, there are just hundreds of thousands of mom blogs, and it is very, very difficult to figure out who to work with, who's relevant. Brands are getting pitched by bloggers all the time, and every blogger obviously says, I'm so fabulous, you should work with me. And some of them really are fabulous, and some of them are not. And it's just very, very hard for busy executives to figure out how to kind of work through that. From the blogger side of things, I've been a blogger myself, though sadly lacking as a owner of a startup more recently, but I've been blogging myself since 2005 and have a lot of relationships on that side, and started seeing that I was getting a lot of phone calls and DMs and emails asking me questions and asking for advice as bloggers were being called upon to negotiate on their own behalf with brands and agencies. Everything from wanting to know terminology, so what's an SMT, and how much do I charge for an SMT?
And what is an SMT?
A satellite media tour. And just a concern that they were getting ripped off, and it just wanting to focus on, I was seeing that bloggers were wanting to focus on creating amazing content and not necessarily wanting to focus on the business side of
So they
things.
were all looking for guidance in this professional world. They were the
Right.
talent, and they needed someone to represent them.
Right, right. So it just became really clear that there was a need for a middleman/woman. So we launched the company. We launched it with 25 very high-profile moms. We now have over 50. We have a few dads, and we have a few women who are not moms but have different areas of expertise. And then we also now represent a network of 40,000 female bloggers. So I like to call it the entire long tail of female blogging. Just to kind of, we were having to say no to a lot of brands who wanted programs that we could not provide with our high influence bloggers. So you want an amazing spokesperson who's going to stand up and talk about your brand or go on the Today Show or do an amazing branded entertainment piece. We were able to provide that no problem whatsoever. But I got a call from a brand who wanted 10 bloggers in the New York area who will be potty training in January of 2013. Could not do that. Who wanted 200 bloggers to put up a post, a high quality post, telling a story within 1 week to launch a new frozen soup line. I could not do that. So by partnering with this other group, we're able to do that and still have our high level of quality, but provide some of the volume that we couldn't.
So different tiers of content and different levels.
We do. It acts almost like a minor leagues for the high influence programs, and it allows us to meet the needs of the brands and also to be able to help more bloggers.
All right, cool. I'm going to come back to you because I want to talk to you and get Greg involved in this, because I know at McCann, when we were trying to sell these concepts, there was a lot of chatter back from the account leads. Well, what makes this real, and what ROI are we getting? And I know you have a new back end you're building, right, to track what's happening out there.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, you can talk about that.
Later. Well, I think a lot of the work that blog networks have been getting up through now has been from PR firms, and so from one. As the owner of an agency, from my perspective, it's been somewhat lovely because there hasn't been as much of an insistence on actual analytics. In the PR world, we look at impressions and then we multiply by 3, and that's what you show the client, and it's awesome. But you know, anyone who's been in the agency space knows that there's more money on the advertising side than there is on the PR side. As a PR executive, it was incredibly frustrating. As someone who's selling programs into agencies, it means that I want to be able to appeal more to the media buyers and to the ad agencies, and that meant that we had to somehow get those real numbers. So if I get a call from a media buyer and they say, I need inventory, I need 50 million impressions within the next 6 weeks, it can't be, well, this blogger gets 100,000 page views a month, so I think probably that's almost this, and very wishy-washy. So we're building a back-end system that will be live within the next few weeks that will get
great.
actual
And you would love that, right?
inventory.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're really about. I think the data-driven content creation is really what it's about, because without that data, you're not able to monetize it. To your point, PR struggles with that.
Yeah.
And I think also when brands can actually tie it to activity within their brand, whether it's through sales or some kind of engagement, that's where the power is, and we see that in many cases.
With display advertising, CPM rates
Yep.
dropping and dying a slow, painful death,
Yeah.
there's now this even more dramatic need for inventory, and inventory that works. So to be able to tie in guaranteed inventory with actual compelling content that's telling a story, we're hoping
It's
a
moving
magic
much more to a
combination.
performance-based
Yep.
world than it was before, yeah.
That's great. All right, let's jump over to Liz, who manages two of my favorite brands, Cool Mom Picks and Cool Mom Tech. And as a working mom, I live for your newsletter. So I'm definitely a fangirl.
We
So
love Lori.
tell us about Cool Mom Picks, Cool Mom Tech, and how you did what you've done.
So in 2006, I'm a writer. I've always been a writer by background. I definitely am not a business person. I don't have an MBA. And I still have a day job as a creative director at an ad agency. And so when I started writing a personal blog called Mom 101 in 2006, it was really a way to just journal and get my thoughts out. And it was like having a column without an agent. And within the first week of blogging, I met a blogger named Kristen Chase who had a blog called Motherhood Uncensored. It's right over there. And within a few weeks of getting to know each other online, we started this website together. Now, at the time, there were no brand blogger relationships at all. I remember, like, at some point, KY Jelly wrote to me, wanted me to, like, try some product and write about it. I'm like, you want to send me a product to write about? It was really weird. So at the time, Kristen had this idea. We were seeing all this stuff online being made by moms. You know, they were sewing blankets, or they were making stuffed animals, and we decided, you know, let's just create a site to write up the cool stuff that moms are doing online. So for about a minute, it was called Cool Mom Shit, because it was cool shit that moms were making. And then we realized pretty quickly, like, that probably wasn't going to work long term. We changed it to Cool Mom Picks. And it really was just a labor of love, like a commitment to small brands and indie design and crafters. And it was right before Etsy had started, so we kind of jumped in early. And we really didn't have a business plan, and we never really thought about it as a way to make money. But we realized very quickly we were onto something, because we started seeing other sites starting to do the same things. And within a few years, we grew to be kind of known as the influencer of the influencers. We had a very niche, very dedicated audience, like amazing conversions, and we would recommend things, and you know, it would sell out of the Etsy shop. And more, we realized our brand really wasn't about independent brands, as much as we have a heart for small companies and women-run businesses. And you know, we walk the floors here, and we look for the companies that can't afford the big booths, and we go, those are our people. So you know, that's still very much who we are. But a few years later, people were asking us increasingly for information about tech. And our inboxes were just filling up with press releases about new apps and things for kids. And we realized there really wasn't a place for moms to go for the same kind of mom-to-mom recommendations that had been building up in the blog world around tech. And moms want to know what video camera to use, or they want to know, you know, what's the best point and shoot, or what app is good for a 3-year-old, or, you know, how can I take a plane ride across country with a 3-year-old without going crazy? Is there anything that can help me? And you know, the truth is, like, 22-year-old guys with goatees in Silicon Valley are not giving them the information they need. Like, moms don't care about the processor speed. They're like, if my kid spills juice on it, will it be okay? So we realized that it's not any worse, it's not any more frivolous than any other tech review site. It's simply from a perspective of a parent, which we see things differently. We buy things for different reasons. And so we started Cool Mom Tech, which has just opened like tremendous opportunities. And we realized that now we're building up the site to have multiple verticals. We now have several editors and lots of contract writers and a staff, and
So
it's
it's
become
like,
a business.
it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. And you have a lot of different types of advertising solutions that you're selling to brands. Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
We do. So obviously there's display advertising. That's dying the slow, painful death that Danielle talked about. But increasingly we're seeing that more as an integrated part of a bigger program. So we have a large social media footprint as far as the mom community is concerned. We have 300,000 Twitter followers. We have a really nice Facebook community. We're growing on Pinterest and Google+, and so we can offer people a lot in terms of social media promotion of things like sponsored posts. Or we're known for gift guides that we do around big holidays because people are searching for mom gifts for Mother's Day or gifts for Father's Day or Valentine's Day or back to school. So we have gift guides that we do sponsorship and integrated content with that. And then we also have our personal brands. So we do spokespeople gigs. We work with Danielle, both of us. And so recently I was a spokesperson for Bing over the holidays. I've done work with TripIt, which is an amazing travel app. And then over the holidays, I was Target's gaming and tech spokesperson for the parenting space to let moms know that it was a great source to buy electronics. But the cool thing for us is that we put our readers first. I mean, the number one most important thing for us is trust and relationship with our readers. And if they don't trust our recommendations, we have nothing. So we turn down way more than we engage with. We are incredibly picky. Sometimes it makes Danielle crazy.
We have plenty of people who'll take the work.
The other work.
Which is true. But we've really tried to stay true to our core brand, which is recommending things we can believe in so people can trust us. So that if I'm on the Today Show talking about apps, it's because I really, really love those apps and believe in them. And the worst thing that could ever happen is for a reader to write to us saying, I spent money buying this thing that you recommended and it was a dud. And you know what? In 6 years, that's never happened. And so we work really hard to curate well, and we really care about what our readers think about what we do. And fortunately, that actually allows brands to have great opportunities with us because they know if we're working with them, we can do a really good, authentic
And you're
job.
transparent.
Very
Okay.
transparent.
And we're going to get back to this question of ethics in this space in 1 second. I want to introduce our last panelist who's really operating on the kids side of this equation, creating a whole way for us to hear from kids. And advertisers are, of course, dying to reach kids when they're selling kid products, but of course there's laws about that. So let's hear from you, Rebecca, about what you're doing to facilitate that conversation.
So I am the co-founder of KidsViews. We are a website, kidsviews.com, and we are now an iOS app, KidsViews, as well as a social media and marketing company for tweens and their parents. I came out of the mom blogging space. I'd been a mom blogger for the last 6 years, and that's where I met my co-founder, Nancy Friedman. We were both mom bloggers, starting out with a very large blogging network called NYC Moms, which was part of Silicon Valley Moms. We met in that space, and as we grew as bloggers in that space, we had the same issue, which was getting tons of products to review, and neither of us do reviews for products, and started getting a lot of kid products. And personally, I don't find it interesting, nor did I want to be a 30-something-year-old woman playing Pets Nursery 2 and then telling everyone how great it was. But I knew that my kids would do an amazing job at that. And I didn't want them on my blog. I wanted my kids to have their anonymity. And there was no way for them to do that online. There was no way for my kids to be online. If they had a blog, they're out there. And it was frustrating. And Nancy and I sat down one day and spoke about this. And I said, there has to be a place where kids can be digital creators. We have an entire generation of consumers. These kids are content consumers. We all know it. They're addicted. They have their devices. The more kids, they're younger, and they're more savvy, and they're getting their smartphones younger and younger, and they're on. And there has to be a way to empower the next generation of content creators, where the next, Steven Spielberg and Steve Jobs are going to come from. It's not from sitting there playing Angry Birds for 8 hours, right? It's from making the next Angry Birds. Mm-hmm. So we created KidsViews, which is the first and only video site by and for kids under 13. It's kids 7 to 12, it's tweens. And they come on and they create a username. There is no digital footprint. There are no real names used. Their parent approves their account. There's no location. There's nothing. So if they were to Google their names, none of these videos would ever show up. We tell kids if they create an I love Justin Bieber video and then they're 15 and they're horrified that they created that video, no worries. Like no one will ever Google your name and know you love Justin Bieber. And what happened was, as we built the site, and as most things happen in tech, you build it and you don't know how your users are going to use it. and they started using it as a community. So as kids started creating videos, we had fan clubs develop where Lego kids were showing off their Lego creations. Other kids were then like, I love that kit, I have that kit too, and they would make a video of their Lego creation, and kids were finding each other with like-minded hobbies. And so we started creating fan clubs based around that and gave the kids mini communities within the site where they could find other passionate fans of books. Is actually our most popular category. So we started to have a lot of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, tons of kids who loved that. And then when the movie came out, we were able to send kids to meet Jeff Kinney and interview him. So we started to see opportunities to take our kids who were really great, contact their parent and say, we have a red carpet opportunity. We'd love to send a kid to interview the stars or the directors. And that grew into what we call our Star Reviewer program, where we have about 300 kids around the country that we work with brands who see, oh my God, you have Lego will say, we have this incredible Lego set coming out. Can you get us 10 kids who love Lego to make Lego reviews? So we do. We find 10 kids who love Lego. We contact their parent. We send them the Lego kits, and those kids create Lego reviews. And those are sponsored content on our site. So they can say whatever they want. We don't edit them for content, but those then become sponsored by Lego. And then Lego can use those on their Facebook page in their promotion. So that's the way that we help brands reach this under 13, really ardent fan base that is incredibly genuine and really authentic and really amazing. I mean, really creative and really positive. This age group of tweens, this 7 to 13, because we always get brands that say, what if they say something bad? In our thousands and thousands of reviews, we've gotten 2 that were negative, and both times, one was for a restaurant in New York called Jekyll and Hyde, and it's the funniest review we have on our site. This girl's hilarious. She's like, you'd think then the food would be good after all that. You'd be wrong. But it started this huge conversation underneath of kids who loved the restaurant.
Right.
So actually, for the brand, it ended up good. And then we had something happen similar with the book where this girl was like, someone else will like it. It wasn't for me. So kids this age, they can't even go all the way negative. So it's become this incredibly positive, encouraging community, both for the kids and for the brands who hear from them.
The best research possible for the brands.
We call it a real-time focus group. We can
That's
see what kids
fantastic.
are talking about and trending in real time.
So I wanted to get to this thing about with you guys, because you're all, you started new areas, you're all now making money, you're monetizing, you're hiring people, you're growing your niches. So what's so bad about being called a mommy blogger? Like what's the problem there?
Well, I can say this because we've been
Yeah.
talking
And I
about
always
this for
quote-
6
when
years now.
When people ask me, I quote Liz.
Oh,
Okay.
well, I'll say this and you can tell me if it's what
lie.
you quote. Well, I mean, first of all, it's a diminutive. Like you don't call, I don't know, Anna Quinlan a mommy writer. Like it just feels like something only our children call us. But really, it's the only category of blogger where we're defined by who we are and not what we write about, not the content. Tech bloggers write about tech, and fashion bloggers write about fashion. We don't write about mommies. Maybe we write about parenting, or we write about technology, or we write about fashion, or we write about politics. But just because we're all moms doesn't mean we're all the same kind of blogger. And I think that's actually a big challenge for the PR folks and the brands that try to reach out to us. We all end up on the same pitch list. And there's 8 million different kinds of blogs out there run by moms. There are coupon blogs, and then there are people that will write anything up for a $10 Walmart gift card. And then there's people like you guys doing like really high-end, 5-figure deals or more with huge brands. So I think to call everybody a mommy blogger, it's not only a little insulting, it kind of just does a disservice to the whole industry because it lumps us all together when it's really very diverse.
And so a brand then now, what we're all trying to get to is efficacy in all of this. So if I'm a brand, and I know we've had this conversation when packaged good brands want to reach, the mom demographic, I might hire my neighbor who's a mom and have her write something. That would be kind of silly. So how do I know who to go to that's real, right? And that's kind of what you're talking about. But so how are brands finding the real people?
I think a lot of them are going to networks to act as middlemen, and I think there are multiple networks out there, and each of them do their recruiting in their own way. I can only speak to what we do. We try to find the best mix. We always work with bloggers who actually like the product so that it's genuine. The reason you're not going to your neighbor and that you're going to a blogger is because the blogger is an influencer, and where bloggers are compelling and where bloggers are successful is because they are storytellers and their readers trust them and feel like they know them. And there's this, I come from Edelman where they do this trust barometer every year, and every year it's no surprise, the person who's trusted most by consumers is a person like me. Yet you see so many brands using celebrities as spokespeople, and where bloggers sit is this amazing kind of mix where you have the celebrity element, which following any one of my 50 bloggers around at a conference, you'll see it can get weird, like people touch them, ask personal questions, and so you have that celebrity element and like, oh, I love you, but then you also have that friend element because these bloggers tell stories and they're compelling and their readers trust them, and so it's this combination of both celebrity and friend that's very, very effective for brands.
And if I can add to that, I think we're all also very interconnected. And I remember going to a conference once and someone was trying to figure out what I did and what my site was. And he goes, well, who would you say your biggest competitors are? And like, I'd never been asked a question like that.
That came from a guy, right?
Yeah. So he said, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the patriarchal model of business, right? So he said, who are your biggest competitors? And I said, well, we don't have competitors. We have a community. And he just looked at me like I had 4 heads. He couldn't imagine, like, what kind of business doesn't have competitors? And I said, well, I guess you could say maybe like Baby Center, but we write for Baby Center. So there's kind of enough bandwidth to go around. It's a very positive, supportive community, and we all link to each other. We all support each other. And I think when you work with a respected mom blogger, you kind of exponentially increase the concentric circles that go outward because we're all linking to each other and promoting each other's great projects.
And that's a good way to find someone who's appropriate, is if you can find one blogger who's appropriate, just ask, do you know anyone else who would be great for this program? Or
On the other hand, I think it can be competitive in that in the same way that it's a very tight community, people are very aware of what each other are doing. So when there is a campaign going on,
you all know each other, right?
We all know each other. We all kind of started out at the same time. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that our business would not be where it is had we not come out of this community, because when we launched, we had 400 women willing to write about us. Cool Mom Picks named us 2011 Hot Site of the Year. We had this amazing network.
And you didn't pay her off.
I did not pay her off. I might have taken her to dinner. But
it was not at Jekyll and
But
Hyde.
there is a competitive nature in that everyone does know what each other are doing. And so if there's 20 people working on a Coca-Cola campaign or 10 people invited to a press junket at Disney World, people know and people talk and people get jealous. There is no doubt about it. I think the worst thing a brand can do is look at Babbel's list and say, I'm going to work with these top 20 women, or I'm going to look at this list and look at because first of all, how those lists are made, nobody knows. And there are lots of fabulous women on those lists. But that is this teeny little segment that most people are very aware of. And there's incredible mom bloggers really rising up every day. And you have to, it's hard work, but you have to take the time to read people. You really do.
Now, we're at CES, and I know that you're doing more with Google+. So what's the role of technology in all of this? I know from a data perspective it's big, and you're all dealing in digital platforms. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're doing with Google+, and how that influences where you guys are going with what you're doing.
Well, with our video programming, because we have to constantly up our game and switch our sail and always just go with the wave, and it's really hard to keep up with technology, and video production is really expensive. So in order to keep our brand alive, we can't always do a pro production. We don't always have brands, ready to go. So we really moved to live broadcast, and Google Plus has an amazing new platform called Hangouts on Air, which are tricked out, easy to do, and they also started their new community called Google Plus Communities. And I started the very first parenting community on Google Plus, and I just brought in my Google Live video. And that way, I don't need a crew, I don't need lighting. We just get on and call our moms up, and if they're free tomorrow morning at 11, I'm going to have her on. And the great thing about Google, which is a little different than Facebook, but it's got some similar sharing, is that everything's indexable and searchable. So all my stuff's getting registered all over Google that morning, and if Liz is on, all her stuff's going to get, and there's not a lot of platforms that are doing that. So for us, it's serving an incredible role.
Right, and you're educating yourself about what all these tools are doing all the time.
Right.
And how about you ladies? New tools all the time, or how are you keeping up to date with the latest?
Well, for us, Pinterest has been the biggest game changer. We now get more referrals from Pinterest than Facebook, with about a third of the followers. That was a huge game changer for us because it not only sends traffic, but it gives us almost like a focus group every single day of what people are interested in and what they're clicking over to. And it's actually increased our number of crafts, DIY, and food on our site. We now have like a full-time food columnist because we realize that's just so important to the moms that read our site, but we still try to do it with our own perspective. So that's been really a game changer.
For us, it's all about mobile, because our users are mobile, and so building an app was a necessity, and that has been amazing to watch. We saw so many kids coming from mobile before we had the app, and the frustration of looking at a website.
Didn't you win some honor with your app or something?
We won Entertainment Weekly named us one of the 10 best kids apps.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
We were very excited. It was like Disney and us. And we were like, wow, we were so little, but it was great, and it was because there was nothing else like it for kids to create. And so that's, I think, what set it apart.
That's great. I want to take a moment to see if there's any questions out there because we do have 4 really powerful women up here. Does anybody want to ask a question? Anybody? All right, I'm going to put Greg on the spot.
Wow, okay.
So again, representing big agency and big companies who are trying to create experiences and connect with their consumer, were you even aware of this world going on over here?
Well, through you, but not.
Everything goes through Lori.
Right, not to the degree that we've seen today. I think it's been an amazing experience today, and leading into this to understand about the community that's been created here. And one of the takeaways, just thinking about what Rebecca talked about with creating your platform, that you started down a path and you learned that it was actually a community being created. So being agile and being flexible, to me, was key, and the community working together as opposed to trying to kill one another. I think it's amazing. I think it's just really fantastic. So I think brands and agencies alike can really take away from that this is a space where there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here, and it seems like there's a community that is willing to work together to move it forward. So.
Yeah, I remember personally being in a meeting where the account team was pitching how to sell a new contact lens to moms. And they wanted to kind of convince moms to take a moment to take care of themselves and throw out those contact lenses that should have been thrown out a long time ago. And I remember trying to explain to them this world that was happening. And so just a question for you guys is, do you have to pitch hard, or are agencies and brands coming to you now? I mean, obviously your business is based on that to a certain extent, but do people get it? Are brands getting it? Are businesses getting it? The value of this demographic? I mean, it's the purse holder in the household, so.
I think they get that we're important and that they need mom bloggers. I don't know that a lot of them yet understand how that works. I think all of us could say that we probably, just in the time we were sitting here, got 10 emails asking if we, here's this amazing infographic that I know you would love to share with your readers.
Yeah. Would you please tell everybody about our Facebook contest? I know your readers would love to hear about it.
So people want to leverage, right? People want to leverage your influencer network.
In exchange, we'll get exposure.
Right.
We can't pay you, but we'll give you a link.
But I think in some brands' defense, I will say that I think there's still a fuzzy line between journalist and blogger, and that there are ethics that
they're different.
Yeah, they're different, but some bloggers want to be treated like journalists when they want that access, but they then want to be paid, which a journalist. So it's hard to figure out what that line is where it's not pay for play.
That's
because
actually
you don't want to be pay for play.
That's a really, really important distinction when we talk about kind of the long tail of the bloggers. I think there's kind of different tiers. So Cool Mom Picks, for example, we never take money for a review. Like, I don't think that you can give an objective review and you're getting paid by that company to say that you like the product. But we can do sponsored content by that company that like kind of halos around their brand positioning, and because I come out of advertising and Kristen's like really brilliant with, knowing how to talk to the community, we can collaborate and come up with something that works. But it's never pay for play. But there are plenty of people that do that, and I think that's starting to fade away. I think the idea of sending lots of samples out to get a positive review, for big brands, there's always going to be a need to get like 1 million hits or 8 zillion page views. But I think there's increasingly a look at the ROI, and it's not there. Yep. And I think if you don't have influence, it doesn't really matter that you said something nice about the
or
brand.
The back end that you're building too.
Right. I mean, I think there is a way to do the high volume in a quality way. I think there's been a distinct lack of quality in that area for a long time. So I think that's going to be the key, is translating the quality piece that we've seen with the very influential people and figuring out how to translate that to get some of that inventory that's so desperately needed, because you're never going to be able to convince a media buyer that it's about quality, not quantity.
Yep.
So if you can get them both, that's
Get them to understand what's really going on. Or let's take one question before we close out.
You know, if you walk the floor, everything seems to be about co-creation now. And actually, sorry, if you walk the floor, everything seems to be about co-creation and collaboration with the consumer. So do you think from moving from reviews that there will actually be collaboration on product development between consumers and the brands that you work with?
I mean, I've done programs like that for a couple of years. We did a program with Kraft where we brought a bunch of food bloggers to the Kraft kitchens and met with their VP of product development, and yeah.
I mean, like beyond focus groups, where the ideas are, where it's not a focus group, it's not a one way, but where the ideas from people who are practically using the products every day, where those ideas are then incorporated in product development. And maybe that's what you were saying.
Yeah,
but
no, and I think we see that all the. I mean, I think a lot of brands now are getting a lot of their ideas from reading.
Well, also we're
Lots of-
being asked increasingly to be on the board or be on an advisory committee to a company that we trust, or like I work a lot with SpringPad. I think that they're just a really cool up and coming company. They're kind of like Evernote meets Pinterest. And so I work with them a lot to talk about, like, here's another thing that you could do that would be better. This would help me as a blogger, or this is what my readers are looking for when they're trying to file their notes. So I see increasingly those kind of opportunities coming up, because they know that they're getting not only smart business owners and writers, but people that really understand their audiences.
Okay, I think we have to wrap it up. Just one last lightning round. What should people look for that you're up to? Download the app.
Oh, download the app right now on the App
Kids Views.
Store. Kids Views, KIDZVUZ. For sure, the app, and we're moving into a few new outlets in the next 3 months. Actually, we're really
So
excited.
keep our eyes open. And Cool Mom Picks.
Cool Mom Picks, Cool Mom Tech, and look for some other cool verticals coming out soon.
Danielle.
We have a huge announcement coming at the end of this month, beginning of next. So my PR person told me this morning she'd kill me if I spilled it. But
So just look out for Sway.
look out.
Okay.
Sway will be in the name.
Okay, great. And Kimberly?
And look out for more moms, going to YouTube and really, designing their channels and broadcasting themselves so their voices are heard. And hopefully this summer we'll have a nice little launch of a new branded entertainment show from the GoTo Mom.
Oh, great.
And if I could say one thing, because I have to just put it out there, I'm really personally hoping that by next year, this is called Parent Tech.
Yeah, nice.